Hi, welcome back to The Scent Advocate. Tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite niche fragrance houses. It is Papillon Artisan Perfumes. I have 4 full bottles in my collection and I'm testing several more. I'm likely to add at least one more to my collection this year, but who knows? I would love to get some feedback on this video and some of the fragrances generally, and maybe you could help me decide. So if you have not yet become a subscriber, please consider doing so. If you like discussion about independent or niche fragrance houses, things that are unusual, I definitely don't spend a whole lot of time, if any, on celebrity fragrances or mainstream or designer fragrances. That's just generally not my thing. So if you're interested in kind of going down the rabbit hole of these less known but very, very important, in my opinion, fragrances, this is probably the place for you. So once again, please subscribe if you like this kind of content. And if you like the video at the end, please give me a like and leave me some comments. I absolutely love getting feedback. So let's jump right in. The first fragrance I acquired from Papillon is Anubis Eau de Parfum. This is 50 ml. And this fragrance, to me, comes off as a soft leather, maybe a suede with a lot of resin. So a suede with myrrh and olibanum and perhaps a floral in there. I believe the floral listed among the notes is jasmine, but what I really get is an orris butter, or it's just that heavy yet powdery accord. And to me, that the way I experience this fragrance, it's more in line with the iris or orris than with jasmine, but according to the notes I've read for this fragrance, it is jasmine. There's also a little bit of saffron in here. I have a hard time picking up saffron, but in this fragrance, I find it easy to detect, and I think that's because it is made brighter by the leather. And it is dark. It is probably best for for cooler weather. You could wear it in the warm weather if you want, but I definitely find that this is probably more appropriate for the cooler weather, cooler to cold. There's a smokiness to this too. It reminds me of campfires, in the early fall, when it's warm enough to be outdoors, but it's not yet snowing and the fire's just crackling. So it's dark all around you, but there's a coziness and a safety coming from the fire, and you're with friends, so you're not alone. It's not scary, but it is smoky and dark and a little bit chilly. And what's beyond the light of the fire, who knows? It's mysterious, and this definitely gives you that. It leans masculine. The projection is exceptional, as is the longevity. This fragrance is something I wear to work. It's something I wear to sleep because it gives me that comfort. It's the sort of fragrance that, in my experience, people will come up to you and ask you what you're wearing. It is something that arouses curiosity in people. The words beautiful don't necessarily come out of their mouths, but they are intrigued. So it is something of an attention getter. And this is Anubis Eau de Parfum by Papillon. The next fragrance I acquired from my collection is Angelique. This is one that drew me in because of the orris in the notes. I also like that there was olibanum and, I think mimosa maybe was among the notes, and cedar, of course. I tend to like it, and I really thought that combination was something that would be intriguing and really beautiful. And of course, I was right. I tested this for a very short time, but I found I loved it instantly. Yeah, this is a cedar meets iris or orris, and the combination is incredible. Those are the two notes that really jump out at me the most. Wow, it is uplifting, light, sophisticated, but energetic. This is great for any season of the year. I think I find myself saying that more and more, and it's probably just a result of the fragrances that I'm attracted to and those that I tend to add to my collection. By far, most of the fragrances I test are not appropriate for any time of year, but this one definitely is night or day. This one leans feminine. Projection is very good, but not as much as some of the other fragrances from this house. Very, very good though. So be careful spraying it. I don't want to send the message that you can overspray this or you should overspray it. I think it leans feminine, but it's unisex. It is something that, would be a great, I don't know, fragrance to wear to work, fragrance to wear when you're running errands. It's really one of those truly unique fragrances that would go anywhere, anytime. It's always appropriate. I've worn this to sleep. I find it comforting enough to put me to sleep, and I find it energizing enough for me to, get my day going on a positive note and feel really supercharged. So it's not a common thing for a fragrance. The dry down is just as beautiful as the opening. A lot of times, fragrances that fall into the more indie or niche brands tend to be a little bit unusual. The way you experience the fragrance in the opening isn't necessarily the way you experience it in the dry down. But I find that the dry down on this fragrance is really not that different from the opening. It just settles a bit more powdery, and the cedar is a bit stronger in the opening. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. Angelique by Papillon. The next fragrance I added to my collection from Papillon was Hera, and this is an extrait de parfum 50 ml. This fragrance is really interesting. It's got ylang ylang and orris and musk and ambrette. So I think the musk really comes out. I think there's narcissus in there too, some unusual notes. But to me, it's that orris and musk that really make this pronounced. And the musk is, it's a little bit animalic, but very mildly so. I don't enjoy an overly animalic fragrance, and this is perfect. It gives it just enough intimacy to make it incredible, and it makes you, just want to bite into someone. Really gorgeous stuff. And then it's offset by the pretty powdery orris and the deep buttery ylang ylang, that kind of tropical rich, thick, mashed up banana, and I think the narcissus, maybe a little bit of an orange blossom in there too. But very heavy on the musk and the orris. So with those, for me, being the predominant notes, I knew I would love it. And of course, if you're not familiar with ambrette, it can express itself. I think it does express itself primarily as a musk, a plant-derived musk note. And I think this is truly unisex. It's amazing on a man, and on a woman, it's just incredibly sexy. You know, my husband loves it on me. I just, it makes me feel amazing. The projection is strong, so you'll want to be careful with this. I don't know if this is something I would wear to the office. I would definitely think twice about that. It's just, maybe it's a little too sexy for the office. I think that's entirely possible. And yet, that Auras gives you a sense of comfort. It's dark. It's probably a cooler weather fragrance, but I could definitely see wearing this on a warm summer night, especially if you're in a humid climate. I know that sounds weird, right? The idea of a heavy musk with a humid climate, but I think the way this reacts on my skin, it would bloom on the skin. So have you worn this in the summer? Let me know. I have, but when I wore it in the summer, it was a drier climate. So I haven't had the chance to wear it on a warm evening in a more humid climate. I'm interested in trying that. Anyway, absolutely unique in my opinion. I haven't smelled anything quite like this. It's got amazing longevity too, so no need to overspray. And I think with all fragrances from Papillon, you get a lot of bang for your buck because you don't have to overspray it. So let me know what you think of Hera, Extrait de Parfum. The last fragrance I added to my collection from Papillon, can you guess? It had to be Salome Eau de Parfum. I sat on the fence with this one for a really long time. When I first smelled it, I was offended. It was something that reminded me of, gosh, when I was a kid, I lived in Europe, and there was a smell, and it wasn't necessarily attractive or beautiful. It was, I'll say, carnal. And I had occasion to notice it from time to time, and I'll leave it at that. Just, you know, in the course of living life. And it was not pleasant, but it was not horrible. And I noticed it and I remembered it, and I was curious about it in a way I didn't understand because I was young. And as I got older, certain elements of different experiences reminded me of that. And when I smelled Salome, it took me back to those smells. There was something about it that reminded me of these things, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I studied up on it, right? I watched a lot of other content creators comment on Salome, and some thought it was repulsive, but many seemed to be attracted to it for reasons that, despite their explanations, made no sense to me. I heard beautiful, pretty, sexy, and I was like, no, that's not it. That's not what I'm thinking. I just don't know what I feel about this. And ultimately, I decided it didn't matter. I kept going back to it, and I wasn't sure why. And my husband doesn't love it. He has a similar take on it. He smells it, and he doesn't really like it, but then he wants to keep smelling it, and then he can't stop, and he stops before I stop. And I got to the point where I was testing it and ordering more and more testers, and then I wanted to sleep in it, and I had to smell more of it. And I don't know. I can't explain my experience with Salome, but the notes are jasmine, carnation, tobacco, styrax, vanilla, hay, patchouli, bergamot, oak moss, cumin, castoreum, and several others, but those were the ones that really jumped out to me. This fragrance, I hear it most often described as sex in a bottle. And I think that mostly has to do with the cumin, right? Cumin tends to, at least for me, and I've heard others speak of it as a human, sweaty sex fragrance or note. And this is definitely there, but it's not just cumin. There is so much happening with this fragrance, and it evolves so much on the skin, even on paper. It is a beast of a fragrance. It is sexy. It is sexy in a way that's a little bit dirty, a little bit raunchy, very adult, very captivating. It's also got some pretty elements to it. I love carnations. I think jasmine is beautiful, even though I'm not a huge fan of florals. These things are undeniably pretty. I love the smell of tobacco. What else? Vanilla, of course, patchouli, and oak moss. I am a complete fool for oak moss, right? That takes me right down the sheep rabbit hole. But it's hard for me to say what precisely about it I love. And I do love it. I went from being, like I said, a little bit put off and offended by it. Like when you're in very polite company and someone uses a very lewd curse word, but they use it in a way that is almost perfectly cool. And, you feel compelled to just, what did you just say? And deep down you're thinking, wow, that sounded great. I wouldn't dare say it, but it sounded really cool coming out of that person's mouth. That's what this is. The person who wears this comes to play, like serious. You don't wear this on a first date. You don't wear this unless you mean business. And yeah. So this fragrance, I think, is so unique in its expression on skin. It smells completely different from person to person. Well, maybe not completely, but significantly different from person to person. And that is why I think it can go masculine or feminine. I think the reason men wear it is because they like the smell of, well, some. I can't say all men. But the ones I've heard comment, and I've read their comments, they like that it smells like sex. And they want to smell that and be reminded of it. And so they wear it on their bodies. It makes them think those thoughts. For women, I don't know. Maybe it's something like the thing that, at least for some women of my generation, we were taught not to say aloud. But you've got this secret, right? You've got this secret and you're wearing it and you can just, smell it. And I don't know, it feels bad to say, but bad in a good way. Yeah. So I think this can go either way. In my opinion, it leans feminine. I've heard it described as, kind of French, how do I say, it's hard to be how to not be politically incorrect and describe this fragrance. It is just that dangerous. I don't know. It's sexy. It's saucy. It's a little bit out of bounds. It's a lot out of bounds. It's incredible stuff. I've never smelled anything quite like it. And so I couldn't stop testing it. And that is why I eventually said, I'm done testing. I'm just buying it, and I had to have it. I realized I had to have it, and I bought it for myself as a gift. I don't often do that, but I did with this one. Salome Eau de Parfum. What do you think of this one? Have you experienced it? Did you go on some kind of mental journey with it like I did? Is your journey complete? Is it evolving? Do you wear it in polite company? I do not. Unless you consider, you know, me and my husband polite company, in which case, yes, I do. But what do you think of it? Let me know. Absolutely amazing stuff. It's art in a bottle. Another fragrance I'm considering from this house, by the way, is Dryad, and I'm going to keep testing it. I won't do a review this time, but I am seriously considering it. Have you tried it? If you have, what do you think? I find it interesting. I haven't gone to a second level sample yet, but what do you think? Let me know. What do you think of the fragrances I reviewed today? What do you think of this house? What do you think? Period. Leave me a comment, please. If you like the video, give me a like, and thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. Bye.